Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. He is the author of intelligent thriller novels, no other than Mr. Guy Morris.
Thank you, Daniel. How are you?
I'm fabulous, fabulous like you, Mr. Guy. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm a very eclectic individual. I actually started off my journey as a homeless runaway at age 13. By the time I was 19, I was married and had a child. By the time I was 20, even though I was functionally illiterate, I got a chance to go back to school, and that changed my stars. I ended up graduating with multiple degrees. I got a full scholarship to grad school. I got accepted to an MBA program. I got to counsel and work with some DARPA engineers because I had developed a macroeconomic model that outperformed the Federal Reserve and actually changed how we build economic models to this day. And so it did. It changed my stars. I spent the next 38 years in Fortune 500 leadership careers in big oil companies, international oil companies, and high tech companies like Burroughs and IBM, and big software companies like Oracle and Microsoft, and some startups, and became an expert in a number of different fields. And I was actually one of the earliest pioneers of AI. And one of the reasons I bring up that macroeconomic model story is that the same types of problems we were solving with manually made large systems models, like models that can predict the climate and predict the economy and do all of these large systems, hyper connected algorithms, large, vast amounts of data, are the same types of techniques and technologies that we use in modern day AI. Now, I also implemented modern day AI during my career, but what really kicked off the inspiration into machine intelligence was a little bit by mistake. It was when I discovered that a program had escaped the NSA spy labs at Sandia.
Yes.
The program wasn't lost, the program wasn't stolen, the program did not break. A spy program got itself, moved itself, escaped the NSA spy labs, and then they lost it and couldn't find it. And as wild as that sounds, I know it's true because when I figured out how it happened and why they designed it that way, they sent two FBI agents to my door. So even beyond my career, when I retired and I started becoming an author, I knew that I wanted to write about this amazing technology, in part because there's so much of what's going on that's behind the curtains, that's basically unseen, that is maybe if in the laboratory, but it's coming out in a few 2 or 3 years, 4 years, and will likely change the world in many ways. And I wanted to illustrate that for the world, not by writing some sort of hyper nerdy analysis of the technology versus the politics and the economics, but to do what Michael Crichton did when he was concerned about DNA manipulations and cloning. Instead of writing a white paper, he wrote Jurassic Park. And my thrillers are an attempt to highlight all of the various, and there's not just one issue, there's multiple issues that impacts multiple aspects of our society, our jobs, our life, our privacy, our relationships, our banking, our politics. Almost every aspect of our life will be touched by this new technology over the next several years. And I wanted a way to help bring that to people's awareness in an extremely entertaining, page turning type of model.
Mr. Guy Morris, thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world. We are hoping and looking forward for more empowering books. So, what defines an action thriller as intelligent?
Well, for one, every single one of my books is deeply researched. And by deeply, I mean I spend anywhere between a couple to up to 12 years of research in finding the factual foundations that I build on the story on. What that with that factual foundation, I'm building my fictional characters and my fictional plots. But while it's intelligent, you're going to learn something new. You're going to typically go someplace you haven't been. And I'm going to raise serious issues that I want you to think about long after you finish the last page of the book. I want to provoke intelligent dialogue between people and provoke people to think about the how these things are going to affect their own life. And so I try not it's got to be entertaining. It's got to be a page turner. That's by definition. I've won a gold award for my first book, Swarm, a silver award for the sequel to it, The Last Ark. I'm ready to release the third book in the series. All of the books are winning awards because they are weaving together real facts on the ground, real world with this fictional world in a way that's very provocative.
Congratulations, Mr. Guy. And how do intelligent action thrillers balance fast paced action with thought provoking elements?
Well, the characters are going to go through some hair-raising experiences. This just like a Dan Brown novel, where there's always you get this chase sense of a chase, you get this sense of danger that follows you through the story. But through that sense of danger, you're uncovering information. You're learning what's behind the threat. You're learning why it's meaningful. You're learning what the ramifications could be. You're learning about how all of these dots connect. So it's not just um, the sake of action and danger for its own sake, but you're actually discovering things along the journey that's relevant to your real life.
What role does a complex and engaging plot play in distinguishing these thrillers?
Well, complex and engaging. Certainly, my reviewers and my fans and the awards all think they're very engaging, but the complex comes from the fact that we really have multiple themes, and that really reflects the reality of our world. Right? Things do not exist in a vacuum. But when we look at artificial intelligence as a theme, and there's various elements of that regarding quantum computing, neuromorphic computing, the various types of AI, the uses of AI in weapon systems versus espionage and versus malicious software. So that's one theme. But that clashes with, in real life and in my stories, with corrupt geopolitics and corrupt national politics, people who want to use those technologies for malicious purposes. I tell everybody that AI is neither benign nor is it evil in itself. But to the extent that it's a proliferation of technology, then it's more a question of how will sociopaths, dictators, corrupt billionaires, corrupt politicians, corrupt CEOs, and others use this technology in ways to gain an advantage for themselves or to be malicious or destructive. And those are some of the things we don't know. The other third theme is prophecy, and that really gets into the general state of the world today and the anxiety that so many people feel in the world with climate change and population and pollution and corrupt politics again, and all of the things that we tend to feel somewhat out of control with, and how there's a cycle to this. There's a purpose to this. Hopi prophecies, Mayan prophecies, Hindu prophecies, Judeo-Christian prophecies, Muslim prophecies, all line us up, and it allows the characters to start connecting all of this chaos around them with something more personal, more intimate, more deeper to who they are from their spirituality and their deeper emotions. And so it'll by having a complex scenario, it allows me to have multiple points of view, and each of those points can carry some of the themes, the various themes of the novel, such that when you're done with the story, you're done with several stories that have now woven together and resonate much more clearly than any one of them by themselves.
So, Mr. Guy, how do intelligent action thrillers differ from a traditional action or thriller genres?
Well, as I said, I think some of them are very particularly in that genre, they're psychological thrillers, and they all based on the same thing: the building up the level of fear of something that might happen, right? And that's a psychological thriller, and there's a number of ways that you can do that, and there's a number of scenarios and plots that you can do that. But that's not necessarily going to get you in touch with how do I respond to this tsunami of AI that's coming at the society? Am I aware of the fact that they want to use it to change our economic and banking systems? Am I aware of the fact that they've now got weapons that can basically kill sight unseen without a human involved? And so there's a number of things that am I aware of the fact that there's some police surveillance that are going to be coming involved with this, and that all of these technologies are going to be used in our society in sometimes unpleasant ways, sometimes pleasant ways. But I write thrillers, so I don't focus on those things. My job as a thriller writer is to expose the technology and then ask the fundamental question, gee, what could possibly go wrong?
Yes.
And then try to answer that question in a very entertaining way, in a way that, in my mind, I'm trying to combine the action of a James Bond with the tongue-in-cheek humor of an Indiana Jones with the savvy of an Elon Musk. And combining that in a way that, again, gets you to think about these things that are really going on in your life. We just had a major, major election in the US, one that many, many people around the world are very worried about and concerned with. There was an absolute element of misinformation prompted by AI tools in this election. That's just a small taste of what's to come. Some people say that this is our last human election that we might ever have. And so AI is going to impact us. And so the difference between a typical thriller, like an intelligent thriller, some of them are espionage thrillers. Your typical, it's the CIA, I can kill you 7 ways before Sunday against the KGB. I can do the same thing. And they're all basically Guns and Roses, bang up, blow it up, crash it, slam it. My main protagonist doesn't believe in violence. He doesn't carry a gun. He refuses. It's all about using the tools and the technologies to trick, to deceive, to manipulate, to distract, to save his butt. But he's more about the human values. And so we want the intelligent thrillers to really look at, not to create some fictional superhero, but to create but to put real people in these scenarios and from all around the world, and see the response that this is going to have on their life. And so again, it's intelligent in that it's going to thrill, it's going to push you forward. I've had one reviewer said that Swarm was a pulse pounding, grab you by the throat thrill ride, but it was also very intelligent and provocative in the things that it enlightened you about with regard to cyber espionage, cybersecurity, what China's doing, what the US is doing, and what could possibly go wrong. And so I think that's the difference.
Very well said, Mr. Guy. Very well said. And what things are commonly explored in intelligent action thrillers?
Well, I'll give you a few examples. One is a drone swarm that DARPA is working on right now in the Nevada desert that can connect up to 10,000 different drones in a particular swarm, meant to basically swoon over a village to get rid of all the combatants in the village before the army comes in, without having to bomb the village to pieces. That's one technology. The other one is the espionage tool that I basically told you was escaped. I also explore some the roots of the conspiracy theories around the Illuminati, or what I call them, the Bilderberg. Basically, there are truths there. There's Swiss Institute studies around the concentration of wealth, and so you'll learn about that. You'll learn about the World Economic Forum program called the Great Reset, to replace the U.S. dollar with a digital currency managed by AI. You'll learn about two genuine, authentic historical Arks of the Covenant that not only still exist today, but both of them resurfaced in new stories never covered in the US press, and are actually playing into the dynamics of the Middle East. In my latest book, we'll explore CERN experiments to create a mini black hole in order to prove a fifth dimension, and then also what the true historical, factual, foundational roots of of the Shroud of Turin that go back to the first century in Edessa, Turkey. And so we'll look at a number of different things. We go to different places around the world. We've been to India, China, Afghanistan, Crete, Israel, Cyprus, London, Bahamas, Amsterdam, and we're just beginning.
What makes a compelling protagonist in an intelligent action thriller?
Somebody who's extremely intelligent, who has morals that he doesn't really think he has because he's an habitual liar. He's been living under the name of a dear friend who died in an explosion that was meant for him. So he's still hiding from the Bilderberg Illuminati people that want him dead. And yet his entire life has been basically helping others because he wants to expose the fact that we're living under this this onerous leadership that basically never is seen, that's always behind the curtains. And so he'll go out and risk his life. He's got chronic PTSD. He's kind of snarky to the point of obnoxious at times. But at the end of the day, he's the kind of guy who will risk his life to do the right thing for something that no one will ever thank him for.
Interesting.
A
So,
hero who's a fugitive that not even when he does the right thing, governments are more likely to come after him and try to kill him rather than thank him.
wow, I want to see that in a series or in a motion picture. So,
I love it. Yeah.
how are antagonists in the genre typically portrayed to challenge the hero?
Um, the antagonist, you mean, to challenge the hero?
Yes.
Well, that's the hardest part. I think for me, that's the hardest part because you always want an antagonist who's just as smart, just as capable, just as just as wicked as your strength of your protagonist. You want somebody who's going to be a good match. And you've got to come up with a an evil scheme that's a little bit more nuanced than what you typically get of in a lot of our movies, right? So we typically we rely on the nuclear bomb going to go off and you got one day to find it, right? So that's been done so many ways, so many times. It's almost cliche. And so the hardest part is to try and find something in real life that could replicate, that could represent a threat that people will feel, that people will connect with, um, and 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 want to see it resolved. And you have to have a villain who's sophisticated enough to pull that off, and yet we still got to see him get his comeuppance in the end, right? So it's I for me, the villain is the most, and almost sometimes the most important character. And it sometimes takes me months of research to try and find the premise or the foundation or the basis of that villain character, and then come up with enough research to make that character feel real. So in my new book coming out in the spring, The Image, and the villain changes in every book, right? Because I can't have there's some villains that basically are in the background that kind of come and go, but other villains have to kind of I have to kind of nobody feels like there's a satisfying ending when the villain who had 95 criminal indictments basically gets off scot free without a single jail day. You know, nobody feels good when those things happen. And so we have to look at creating new villains each time, and that's part of the hard work. And trying to find that unique premise of what's plausible with today's technology. What are we working on that could possibly create something that's unexpected. And for me, it was CERN experiments creating a mini black hole, and the World Economic Forum initiative to try and replace the US dollar with a digital um, AI digital currency, and the changes of global dynamics that would create. Those are both world changing events. And then in the background, you have wars in Ukraine and wars in Israel and elections and other things going on that add to that tension, and to some extent red herrings the reader into wondering, is that really where the real threat is? Or is the real threat going to come over here? Is it going to come up over there? And so you don't want to make it super obvious. So part of it is basically taking things and building it out until you find the one that's really going to pop. And so yeah, the villain is the hardest part, and they have to be super smart. They have to be super well informed. They have to be just as sharp as anybody else. Where you have to both, and they have to have some redeeming quality. They have to have some element where you think, well, I can understand why he'd want to do that, right? Or I can. There, you can't have somebody who's so shallow, so superficial that you can dismiss him or her. And so creating a villain with depth is it takes work.
Definitely. For sure. So, Mr. Guy Morris, what will be your advice for those aspiring writers out there that want to write intelligent thriller?
Um, do your homework first. The homework starts with learning how to write an intelligent thriller. There's lots of resources out there. There's books, there's master classes from Dave Bellucci and Dan Brown and James Patterson and others. There's books on how to do that. And then do what Stephen King says. The best writers are the best readers. Read,
Yes.
consume as many of them as you can. Just absorb the genre as much as you can. I have my favorite authors. If they come out with a new book, I have to have it. It's no question anymore. And I've absorbed them for years, and hopefully I'm reflecting some of that back. And then the other thing is, get the right tools and be patient with yourself. Take the time to find and do the research to find a unique premise and build unique characters. Unique characters don't just show up on the page. They're built by understanding human flaws and ticks and mannerisms and lifestyles and habits and all of the smells and the things that that we live. You have to create that for each of your characters and the history of why did they feel that way if they have that opinion? Where did that come from? And so do the homework to create the characters and your plots and the research first. For me, if you're going to do complex thrillers, it's one of the genres where you can't there now. For those of you who don't know, there's people called pantsers and plotters. A pantser is somebody who basically starts page one, they just write the book, just it just flows out of them, the story flows out of them, the changes flow out of them. That's fine if you're writing a romance novel. That will not work if you're going to write a credible, authentic, believable thriller. And so you have to understand how the various threads and the things weave together, where those plot points, crisis points come, so that you can make sure it all comes together at the end and makes sense. And then the last thing I'll tell you is, again, I go back to Stephen King. He says, first drafts always suck. No matter what you do, no matter how good you write, you might have some really, really clever, really well written literary lines in there. But for a thriller, it's all about pulling characters, feelings, plots, lines together. You're going to go through multiple drafts. Just count on it, and don't even think that it's anything wrong with that. I'm on version 20 of my current book, and I'm sure to do another 5 or 10 before I'm done.
Yes. Yes, people, and stop procrastinating. If you have the passion to write, write, and share to the world. So, Mr. Guy Morris, what is your short term and long term goals in writing?
Well, my short-term goal in writing is get the next book out quickly so I can get it. I wanted to get it out before this year, so it's running late. So I want to get it out for the spring season because I do a lot of signing events. I want it for my signing events next year. I've got a nonfiction book on artificial intelligence called Humanity and the AI Tsunami, a survival guide. I'm working on that now. Long term, I hope to actually kind of break through where I can get on that bestseller list and maybe get a movie made. At that point, I'll be moving to Italy and writing from there.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno.
So, Mr. Guy Morris, to sum up our discussion about intelligent thrillers, how do readers find intelligent action thrillers so appealing?
Well, if you want to go find my thrillers, the easiest way to start is go to my website because it has links to all the books. It has reviews. It has fact versus fiction pages, trailers, the whole works. GuyMorrisBooks.com. Or you can find me at Guy Morris Books on Instagram or official Guy Morris Books on Facebook.
Yes. So, people, again, Mr. Guy Morris, thank you so much for sharing your intelligent thrillers to the world. We're hoping for more novels to come, and we want to see this on the big screen and in the
Yeah.
series. Cross my finger, mister. So, can you please again invite our listeners to support all your books?
Please, I would love to have you guys buy the books. I know you would enjoy them. My ratings are extremely high. They're Audible, they're on Kindle, they're in paperback, and every book is inspired by true stories and years of research. Every book has won an award. You will learn, you will laugh, you will cry, you'll grip your nails till they break. You'll end with a big smile.
So, people, let's support Mr. Guy Morris. As I said, if you support him, more intelligent thrillers to come. So, Mr. Guy Morris, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon. I'm inviting you next year, Mr. Guy Morris, to do an episode again.